The millionaire client pretended not to speak English, but when the poor assistant translated it, he was shocked and madly in love. She was never supposed to speak to him, not to look him in the eye. But when the poor assistant dared to tell the truth about the man everyone lied to, she didn't just break a rule, she broke his silence. And what happened next changed both of their lives forever. Before we continue, if you enjoy touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. Just translate exactly what I say. He doesn't speak English. Remember? The words sliced through the room like ice water over warm skin. Eden Clark tightened her grip on her notebook, knuckles whitening as the senior marketing executive tossed her a look, part warning, part disdain. They stood inside the sleek, glass-walled conference room of Armitage & Moore, one of London's most prestigious luxury consultancy firms. Through the walls, the office floor buzzed with professionals in perfect rhythm. Polished shoes clicking against marble, espresso cups clinking softly, voices murmuring in carefully measured tones. Eden didn't quite fit in, not with her ribbon-tied hair and second-hand skirts. But she wasn't here to be seen. Just to do her job, quietly. Except today. Today, Lucian Vale, the firm's biggest, most enigmatic client, was attending in person. The air shifted the moment he entered. Lucian Vale. He walked in like silence wrapped in Armani. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a tailored navy suit so sharp it almost whispered as he moved. People in the industry often whispered that Vale wasn't his real surname, that he'd shortened it years ago to make it sound sharper, cleaner, easier to remember. His steel-gray eyes scanned the room, slow and exact, like he was filing away every detail, every weakness. He didn't smile, didn't speak. Not a word. Instead, he nodded once to his translator, a sleek woman named Irene, and took the seat at the far end of the table like a king settling onto a quiet throne. His assistants trailed behind him like shadows. Eden's breath caught when his eyes landed on her. For the briefest second, his gaze paused, not flirtatious, not warm, just sharp, seeing. She looked down quickly as if caught doing something wrong. Her cheeks burned. She wasn't used to men like him looking at her at all, let alone like that. The meeting began. The executives dove into their pitch, their voices puffed with confidence, overflowing with flattery and buzzwords. Eden sat beside them, translating every sentence into French with careful precision. Lucian listened, expression blank, posture still, sipping his espresso without a hint of reaction. Until it happened. The senior exec leaned back in his leather chair, rolled his eyes, and muttered under his breath, just loud enough for the table to hear, "Honestly, I don't know why we keep babying him like this. He's not even that impressive. Just another rich, broody type with a silent complex." Someone laughed, short and smug. Eden froze, pen hovering above her notebook. Her heart thumped like a warning drum. She looked up. Lucian hadn't moved, but his jaw had tensed, a fraction, barely visible. Her eyes darted to Irene, the translator, who was distracted with her tablet, still summarizing the earlier point. And just like that, Eden knew. He had understood every single word. She swallowed hard. If she translated the insult truthfully, she'd risk her job, maybe worse. But if she stayed silent, she'd be protecting people who didn't deserve it. Her chest tightened with the weight of it all. She took a breath and lied. "He says you listen deeply, that your silence speaks volumes, that real strength doesn't need to explain itself." A pause. Then Lucian's eyes flicked to hers, still expressionless, but something shifted, just slightly. His head inclined, just once. Approval. The meeting rolled on, but Eden's heart kept tripping over itself. 100 unspoken things passed between them in the silence, and none of it had anything to do with numbers. That afternoon, back at her desk, Eden sat with her usual mug of chamomile tea staring out the window. The sky was gray, soft. London always looked tired this time of year. She reached into her bag and pulled out the silver compass she always carried, her grandmother's. It was small, weathered, and a little stubborn when it turned, but it still pointed north, always had. Her grandmother used to say, "When life spins you in circles, love and truth will still find the way." It was the one thing Eden had held on to through scraped-together rent, awkward temp jobs, and birthdays no one remembered. She traced the rim of it slowly, grounding herself. Chamomile? She jumped. Lucian Vale stood at her desk, alone, no assistants, no translator. His coat draped over one arm, his expression unreadable. Again. I didn't hear you coming," she said, startled. "I noticed you drink it every day." She blinked. It helps." He reached into his pocket and placed a small packet on her desk. Loose leaf chamomile, boutique blend, imported. "I thought you might like a better version." Her fingers brushed the corner of the packet. She looked up. "Thank you." He hesitated and then said, "Walk with me." She almost laughed. "A walk with you?" "Just around the block. I need to think. You seem like someone who prefers walking over small talk." She stared at him, unsure. This couldn't be happening, but she nodded. They walked together through the narrow streets near the office, her skirt fluttering slightly in the breeze, his coat moving in that slow, deliberate way. He didn't say much, but when he asked about her family, her books, her compass, it was with an attentiveness that made her forget who he was. He didn't just hear, he listened. She showed him the compass. He held it like it was made of glass, turned it in his hands. "This doesn't just point north," he said quietly. "It anchors you." "It does," she murmured, "most days." When they returned, he paused at the door of the building, looking up at the clouds. "I'll request you for all future translations," he said softly. "But you don't need a translator." His mouth curved. "Barely." "No, but I need someone honest. Someone who doesn't flinch when it matters." She was still processing that when he turned back to her. "And next time," he added, his voice lower, almost teasing, "maybe don't protect them so well." She flushed. "I thought I was protecting you." His eyes flicked to her lips, then back to her eyes. "You were, and I noticed." And for the first time since he stepped into her world, Eden felt completely seen. As he walked away, she clutched the compass tighter. The needle wavered, then held steady. But her heart? It was already spinning in another direction. The next morning, Eden arrived at the office earlier than usual. The city was still half asleep, and so was the building. Just the gentle hum of the cleaning staff and the quiet purr of espresso machines down the hall. She liked these quiet pockets of time when her thoughts weren't yet weighed down by email pings and side-eyes from the other assistants. She pulled her cardigan tighter and walked toward her cubicle. But before she could reach it, someone called out behind her, "Morning, Eden." "Oh, wait, should I say bonjour now?" It was Tessa, the sharp-tongued receptionist who always wore lipstick that looked expensive and carried gossip like it was currency. Eden smiled politely. "Morning." Tessa leaned over her desk with a gleam in her eye. "You're on his calendar today." Eden blinked. "Whose?" "Lucian Vale, obviously." Tessa tapped her screen with a nail painted the color of wine. "He booked the small lounge at 2 p.m. today. It says, and I quote, 'Private briefing with Eden Clark.'" She looked up with a wicked grin. "Not bad for someone who doesn't even have a LinkedIn photo." "I think it's just translation," Eden said quickly, her voice catching. "Oh, of course it is." Tessa winked. So innocent, so pure. Then she added more softly, "Just be careful. Men like him. They eat girls like us for breakfast." Eden's mouth tightened. But she nodded and kept walking. The office never said things directly, just whispered them in coffee corners and email forwards. By the time the floor filled with people, the whispers had already begun. Did she really say that in the meeting yesterday? Why is she getting private appointments now? I heard she corrected something the lead got wrong, right in front of him. She's not even certified. It's weird, right? It didn't matter if she kept her head down. The moment Lucian Vale said her name aloud, she became visible. And in a place like this, visibility was dangerous. At 1:50 p.m., Eden stood outside the small lounge on the 17th floor, holding her notebook and trying not to let her hands shake. Lucian was already inside when she walked in, this time wearing a black turtleneck under a slate-gray jacket. Somehow he looked even more unapproachable without the suit. He didn't rise when she entered, just looked at her like he had already been thinking about her for hours. You came? You invited me. His mouth curved ever so slightly. There was a tea tray on the small table beside him. 2 cups. She noticed the same chamomile blend he had given her yesterday. I remembered, he said simply. They sat, and for a moment neither of them spoke. She finally asked, "So, what did you want me to translate?" "Nothing," he replied. She blinked. "I asked for the meeting because I wanted to talk to you without anyone else listening." Her throat went dry. "About yesterday?" "No," he said. "About what you didn't say yesterday." He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. "You had the power to humiliate someone. You didn't." Eden swallowed. "It wouldn't have helped anything, and I didn't want to embarrass you." His eyes narrowed slightly. "That's what I don't understand. Why protect me?" She hesitated. "Because I know what it feels like. When people assume things about you. When they talk around you like you're not real." Lucian looked at her like he was seeing her past, not just her face. Then, softly, "You grew up poor." It wasn't a question. Eden nodded. "My mom worked 2 jobs. I got scholarships. Never had the right clothes, the right accent. People hear me and assume I'm fragile or dumb." She laughed lightly. "I'm not dumb." "No," he said, almost under his breath. "You're not." For a long moment, the room was just quiet breath and warm tea. Then Lucian reached into his pocket and pulled something out, a silver pen, engraved with his initials. Not flashy, just elegant. "I want you to keep this," he said. She frowned. "A pen?" "It's the one I sign contracts with. I haven't let anyone else touch it in 5 years." "I can't take something like that." "You already did yesterday." She looked down at her tea. "I didn't mean to lie." "You didn't," he said gently. "You shielded the truth. That's different." She turned the pen over in her hands, feeling its weight. "What is this?" she asked quietly. "Why me?" Lucian leaned back, eyes never leaving her. "I don't trust easily, but I watch everything. And you see people. Even the parts they don't show." He paused, then added, "And I think you've spent most of your life hiding, just so people wouldn't feel threatened by how much you understand." Eden felt a lump in her throat. No one had ever said something like that to her before. They sat in that quiet space, something between confession and calm, until a soft knock interrupted them. It was Irene, the translator. Her expression was smooth, but her eyes flicked to Eden with a trace of something sharp. "Oh, I wasn't aware this room was booked for so long," she said too casually. "Lucian, we have your call with Geneva in 10. "I'll be there," he said coolly. Irene lingered, then offered a tight smile to Eden. "I suppose you'll be needing more space on his schedule then." She left before Eden could respond. Lucian stood and handed her the pen again. "Keep it. I'll expect good notes next time." "Next time?" he nodded. "I'd like you on the Paris brief next week. Just you. No filters?" Eden stared. "That's not my department." "It is now." As he walked away, Eden remained frozen, holding the silver pen between her fingers. The same hand that held her compass now held his trust. But as she stepped into the hallway, A familiar voice whispered behind her, "They're saying she seduced him to get promoted." And just like that, the spell shattered. The warmth turned cold. She turned, heart pounding, only to see two colleagues disappearing around the corner, laughing behind their hands. She looked down at the pen in her hand. Was it a gift or a target? That evening, Eden stood in her tiny kitchen staring at the leftover soup on the stove, untouched since lunch. The lights above buzzed faintly. Outside, the rain whispered down the windows like fingers tracing glass. She should have felt proud. She should have been celebrating. A personal invitation from Lucian Vale himself, a promotion hidden behind a simple sentence. "It is now," it echoed in her mind like a bell. In her mind. But all she could hear louder than that was the sneer in that hallway voice. "They're saying she seduced him to get promoted." The words weren't new. Women like her, quiet, unconnected, working twice as hard for half the notice, always heard that phrase eventually. Any closeness to power came with suspicion. And if the man was rich, handsome, and used to getting what he wanted? The judgment sharpened. She poured herself a bowl of soup, sat at her tiny dining table, and opened her notebook. It was where she kept the real notes, not the ones for work, but thoughts, phrases, moments. It wasn't a diary. More like her evidence that she was paying attention. She opened to a blank page and, without meaning to, wrote, "He listens in silence, and suddenly I feel louder." She stared at the words, then tore out the page and crumpled it. No, this wasn't anything. Just gratitude, just confusion, just complicated. The next day, Lucian didn't come into the office. Eden was halfway through typing up a translation draft for the Paris briefing when her supervisor appeared at her desk, holding a manila folder like a weapon. "Clark, my office." She followed, ignoring the glances. Her manager, a woman named Deborah Voss, elegant in that tightly wound way, sat behind a desk that seemed more throne than workspace. "Have a seat," Deborah said, tapping the folder. "I'll get straight to the point." Eden sat, straight-backed, calm. "I've had 2 complaints, anonymous, about favoritism." Eden blinked. "Favoritism?" "Yes. Apparently, Mr. Vale has requested you for multiple projects, bypassing the standard approval chain. And considering your lack of credentials, this raises certain implications." Eden's jaw clenched. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I'm sure you didn't. But optics matter. You're not part of any official team, and you've had direct access to our highest-tier client." Deborah's voice hardened. "So let me ask plainly, are you sleeping with him?" The question landed like a slap. Eden's stomach twisted, but she didn't look away. "No. Absolutely not. Then I suggest you decline any further private meetings and submit your assignments through Irene's team from now on." "Do you understand?" Eden didn't answer right away. She looked at the framed photo on Deborah's desk. 2 sons in uniforms, a husband in golf clothes, the family of a woman who had never been looked through. "I understand," Eden said finally, standing. But as she left the office, her cheeks burning, the silver pen in her pocket felt heavier than ever. That night, Eden met her friend Leah for dinner, one of the few people who knew her outside the building's glass walls. They sat at a tiny Greek cafe near Camden, sipping warm lentil soup and tearing off hunks of fresh pita. Leah tilted her head. "So let me get this straight. He speaks perfect English. Everyone knows it now. And he still asked you?" Eden shrugged. "He said he trusts me." "Well, I trust you too, but I'm not flying you to Paris." Eden gave a soft laugh, the first real one in days. Leah leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "Do you like him?" "I barely know him." "Right. So do you want to know him?" Eden went quiet. She thought about the way he looked at her like a mirror, not to see his reflection, but to see hers. "I don't think he lets people close," she said quietly. "Maybe he does, just not the ones trying to climb him like a corporate ladder." Eden smiled into her tea. "You're a menace?" "I'm a friend," Leah said, squeezing her wrist. "And I'm telling you, if this becomes a storm, you'd better have a coat on, or at least someone willing to hold the umbrella." The next morning, Lucian was back. She hadn't expected to see him so soon, especially not at her desk. But there he stood, coat draped over one arm, eyes scanning her face like he already knew something was off. "Are you free for 5 minutes?" She stood, heart hammering, and followed him into a quiet hallway off the executive wing. No one else was around. Just them. He stopped, turned. "What happened?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Something changed. Yesterday you were steady. Today you're guarded." She hesitated. "Deborah pulled me into her office." He didn't speak. "She asked if I was sleeping with you." His jaw tightened. "I see." "She told me to distance myself." His voice was a thread of steel. "Did you agree?" "I told her the truth," Eden said quietly. "But yes, I agreed." Lucian looked away, jaw working, as if he were fighting something. Words, anger, maybe instinct. Then he said, "I won't let them punish you for my choices." "You didn't do anything wrong," she said quickly. "No, but I let the lie live too long." He exhaled, then met her eyes again. "Let me fix this." Eden shook her head. "If you make a statement now, it'll make things worse." "Then what do I do?" She hesitated, her voice soft. "Just let it fade. Let them forget." He stared at her. "I won't forget." And for the first time, there was something openly vulnerable in his face. Something that made her feel like she was the only one holding the map in a world full of lost men. She didn't speak, just nodded. He stepped back, slipping into that quiet armor again. But as he walked away, she heard it. A whisper from a doorway just around the corner. "It's always the quiet ones." "You think she's after his money?" Eden turned sharply. The hallway was empty, but the echo stayed. And this time, when she looked down at her compass, it spun wildly. Not because she was lost, because the storm was closer than she'd thought. Eden kept her head down for the rest of the week. She buried herself in translation drafts, polished summaries and late-night edits no one would ever credit her for. Her name disappeared from the Paris project calendar, quietly replaced by someone from Irene's team, just like that. And Lucian? Gone. Not a word. No texts, no notes, no unexpected tea deliveries. He'd vanished as silently as he had arrived. And Eden tried not to care, tried to remind herself that he was a client, not a friend, not someone she could count on, not someone who owed her anything. But still, it stung. And worse, the whispers hadn't stopped. They'd only softened, grown colder. Now it wasn't just office gossip, it was erasure. She could feel it in the way her manager skipped over her in meetings, the way Irene didn't CC her anymore, the way Tessa's smiles had turned sugar slick and sharp. By Friday, Eden knew what was coming. She found the envelope on her desk just after lunch. Pale gray, formal, folded neatly and unsigned. And, "You're a talented girl, Eden, but you've become a liability. You have two options: obey quietly or disappear politely." No name, no signature, just typed words, like a threat wrapped in silk. Her hands trembled as she held the note, not because she was afraid, but because she wasn't sure which part hurt more. The threat itself, or the fact that no one would stand beside her if she chose to stay. That evening, Eden wandered through Notting Hill with her coat pulled tight and her head full of noise. She needed air. She needed something real. She walked until her feet ached, until the city dimmed into smaller corners, and finally found herself outside a small cafe tucked between a florist and a tailor. It was warm inside, wooden shelves lined with books and jars of dried herbs. No music, just the soft hum of voices and the clink of cutlery. She sat near the window, ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, roasted tomato soup with toasted sourdough, and took out her notebook. Needing the feel of a pen in her hand more than she needed dinner. Halfway through scribbling down a line about silence and survival, she felt it, that strange stillness, the air shifting. She looked up. Lucian Vale stood in the doorway, no coat, no suit, just a dark sweater, black jeans, and that look, like he saw the world in outlines no one else could draw. Their eyes met. Neither of them moved. Then slowly, almost cautiously, he walked over. "Are you following me?" she asked, only half kidding. He shook his head. "I come here when I want to feel human again." She blinked. "You feel what? Like a machine the rest of the time?" He didn't smile, but his eyes warmed. "Yes." He slid into the seat across from her. No invitation, no apology, just presence. A waiter came over, clearly recognizing Lucian, and nervous. "Mr. Vale, your usual?" "Please." Lucian nodded, then turned back to her. "The soup's good, but the grilled halloumi is better." She gave a soft laugh. "You have a usual?" "I come here when I need to remind myself that life exists outside boardrooms and billion-pound contracts." She stirred her soup. "Do you often need reminding?" He hesitated, then quietly, "More than I'd like to admit." The meal came. A quiet clatter of plates. The warm scent of herbs and grilled cheese filled the air. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Not awkward, but comfortable. Then Eden asked, "Why didn't you say anything this week?" Lucian paused, set down his fork. "I was handling things. Carefully," she frowned. "Handling what?" "I didn't want to escalate what was already being whispered. If I'd defended you, it would have made things worse." "So, you said nothing?" He nodded. "Because they already think I've given you something." She met his gaze. "And haven't you?" He didn't flinch. "Respect, opportunity, a voice in rooms where people like you are usually decorations." Her throat tightened. "They're trying to force me out." "I know." His voice was steady. "That's why I'm offering you something else." He reached into his coat pocket and slid something across the table. A folder, embossed in silver. She opened it. Inside, an offer letter, a full-time position, with travel, with title, reporting directly to Lucian Vale's private holding company. She stared at it. "Do you want me to work for you?" "I don't want to," he said. "I need to." Eden looked down at the page. "You know they'll say this proves everything." "Let them," he said simply. "And what if I don't want to run?" He leaned forward, his voice soft but certain. "Then stay, and I'll stand beside you." Publicly, her heart skipped. But it was too much, too fast, too fragile. "I don't know what this is," she said, looking up at him. "I do," he replied. "It's truth, and it scares the people who've lived too long behind power games." A long silence passed between them, filled with heat and hesitation. She looked down at the offer again, a future she never expected. A war she didn't ask for. A man she wasn't sure she could trust. And just as she opened her mouth to respond, her phone buzzed, a message from Leah. "Someone leaked your name to the press. You're in the news." Eden's breath hitched. She opened the link, and there it was, a headline. "Mystery assistant spotted with reclusive billionaire. Who is Eden Clark?" She looked up. Lucian was already reading over her shoulder. And for the first time since they met, he looked afraid. The photo wasn't even flattering. Someone had taken it from across the street through the cafe window. Grainy, half obscured by condensation. But Eden's face was unmistakable, bent over her notebook, brows drawn in focus. Lucian's profile was just behind her, clearly mid-sentence. The headline had gone viral by dawn. "Billionaire Lucian Vale breaks silence for mystery woman. Assistant or affair? By 8 a.m. It was on page 6, a trending topic on Twitter, and flooding the inboxes of every executive at Armitage and Moore. By 8:12, Eden's badge no longer worked at the front entrance. She stood at the turnstile, holding the cold metal rail, staring at the red light. The security guard, Paul, who used to greet her with a smile, looked away. "I'm sorry, Miss Clark. I was told not to let you in." Her voice was dry. "Who told you?" "Upper floor." He tapped the headset in his ear, avoiding her eyes. Eden stepped back, stunned. Her whole body felt too still. She hadn't even done anything. She hadn't kissed him, hadn't held his hand, hadn't whispered anything that could even be twisted into scandal. But that didn't matter. Not now. Now, she was just the girl from the picture, the nobody with a notebook. Lucian found her on the sidewalk 20 minutes later. His driver had been circling the block. When he stepped out of the car, he was already mid-phone call, voice low and clipped. "I want the firm to release a statement." No, not ambiguous. Clear, she is not involved with me romantically, and she was removed without cause. Yes, I'll sign it myself. Do it now. He ended the call and turned to her, slipping his phone into his coat. "I'm sorry." She didn't look at him. "Are you?" He stepped closer. "I should have seen this coming." "You did," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "You've known how people work for a long time." Lucian's eyes softened. "Not like this." "I'm being erased," Eden whispered, "and not because I did something wrong, but because I didn't." He didn't argue. He couldn't. Instead, he opened the car door. "Come with me, just for the morning." "We'll talk." She hesitated, but when the stares from passing pedestrians started to pierce, she slid into the back seat. They drove through the heart of London in silence. Lucian didn't speak until they were in the underground garage of a private building. No signs, no doorman, just polished concrete, silent lifts, and the faint scent of cold steel. He led her to the top floor, a penthouse that was nothing like she expected. It wasn't grand, it was quiet. Warm wood floors, old books, soft lighting, a fire flickering behind a glass, a coat rack by the door. It looked like someone actually lived there. Lucian took off his jacket and tossed it over a chair. Then he turned to her. "You're not erased, you're not forgotten, and you're not alone." "I'm jobless," she said, setting her bag down. "And trending." He moved toward the kitchen and pulled out a small pot. "Tea?" he asked gently. She nodded. He brewed it the old-fashioned way, leaves in a metal strainer, water on the stove. It felt slow, intentional. "Chamomile," he said, placing the cup in front of her. "Of course," she replied, trying to smile. They sat at the long kitchen counter, steam rising between them. "I've signed the statement," he said. "It'll go live in an hour. I also spoke with the board. They're not happy, but I reminded them who owns the controlling shares." "You don't have to fix this," Eden said. "Not like that." "I do," he said softly, "because I let the myth go on too long, because I liked the quiet, the control. But I forgot what silence costs someone else." She looked up at him. He looked. "Searching? What happens now?" Lucian leaned back. "You work for me, if you want. You'll have a clean contract, clear boundaries, your own team. And if I say no," his gaze didn't falter, "then I'll still fix this. I'll still clear your name, because this isn't about us. It's about right and wrong." The word us hung in the air like a blush no one wanted to name. They sipped their tea in the hush between thoughts. Then Lucian said, almost absent-mindedly, "You know what they called me before all this?" She shook her head. "The Ice Prince, or the Velvet Guillotine." He smirked just a little. "Silent, cold, dangerous, charming if needed." Eden laughed, really laughed, and covered her mouth too late. He tilted his head. "Did you just snort?" "I did not." "You did?" Her laughter warmed the space between them. For a brief second it felt like the storm was outside, far away. But then Eden's phone lit up again. Another message. This time from her mother. "What is this I'm seeing on the news? Why is your face everywhere?" "Eden, call me, now." Eden stood startled. "I have to go. My mother, she's not well. She worries." Lucian nodded, already reaching for his coat. "I'll have the car take you." "No," she said, grabbing her bag. "It's better if I handle this alone." He paused. then handed her a small white envelope. "What is this?" He didn't answer, just looked at her. "You'll know when it's time to open it." She slipped it into her pocket, not trusting herself to ask more. Lucian walked her to the lift, waited while the doors opened, but didn't step in. He stood at the threshold and said quietly, "Whatever they call you, whatever they print, I see you, the real you." Her chest ached with something she didn't know how to carry, and as the doors closed, she realized something terrifying. She was falling for a man whose name had always come with a warning, and now her own family would see it too. Eden's mother lived in a modest brick row house just outside of Croydon. With rose bushes she trimmed every Sunday and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of boiled tea and old cinnamon. By the time Eden arrived, her phone had already rung 5 times. She hadn't answered. Not because she didn't want to explain, but because she didn't know how. How do you explain to your mother, who has spent her life working night shifts and clipping coupons, that your face is on gossip websites for having lunch with a man whose shoes probably cost more than her monthly income? Eden took a breath and knocked. The door opened a second later. Inside. Now. Her mother didn't yell. She never had to. She had the kind of voice that made even silence sound like an order. Eden stepped in, cheeks flushed from the cold and the weight of being suddenly, impossibly known. The kettle was already boiling. The table had 2 mismatched mugs, a half-sliced lemon, and a plate of plain toast, her mother's default nervous stomach meal. Eden sat down. Her mother sat across from her. No hug, no small talk, just the look. The "you better explain yourself before I ask again" look. "Why is your name in the same sentence as Lucian Vale?" Eden wrapped her fingers around her mug. "It's not what you think." "Well, I think he's a billionaire who doesn't speak to anyone." "And now you're in his penthouse?" "I was not—" Eden cut herself off. "I wasn't alone with him like that. You were in the news, wearing that soft blue skirt I told you not to wear, without tights." Eden huffed. "That's what you noticed?" "I also noticed the look on your face. You weren't afraid of him." "Why would I be?" Her mother leaned in. "Because men like him don't play on our side of the line, Eden. They don't marry the girl with hand-me-down cardigans and cracked cuticles. They admire, they use, and then they move on." The toast went cold. The room shrank. "You think I'm being used?" Eden whispered. "I think you've always been kind to people who don't deserve it." Eden looked down at her hands. There was chamomile on her coat sleeve, a smear from earlier. It smelled like warmth, like Lucian. Her mother softened. A breath. "I'm not accusing you, love. I'm worried, because I know how the world sees girls like you, smart, quiet, unimportant. I'm not unimportant to him." The words escaped before she could catch them. Her mother blinked, then, gently, "That's exactly what worries me." Later that night, Eden curled up on her childhood bed, too short, too narrow, staring at the cracked ceiling and listening to the wind against the window pane. She hadn't cried, but her chest felt tight, in that way that meant she would later. She pulled the silver compass from her bag. Its needle turned, slowed, and held steady. North. Always north. Her grandmother had believed in things like direction, truth, gut instinct. But Eden didn't know where any of that pointed now. Her phone buzzed again. "Lucian, I wanted to give you space. But if you need anything, I'm still here." She typed a reply, deleted it, typed again. Then, finally, "I'm okay. Just trying to be seen without being judged." A moment passed, then, "You're not the one being judged. They're just afraid you might matter more than they do." She didn't reply, but she placed the compass under her pillow, just like she had as a girl, hoping it would somehow point her dreams in the right direction. By morning, the story had taken a turn, a new article, more brutal, less curious. From nobody to notorious, Eden Clark's dangerous proximity to power. There were quotes from anonymous sources, descriptions of her clothing, her unpolished image, her sudden proximity to Lucian Vale's inner circle. One line made her stomach drop. A woman with no background, no connections, and no credentials, yet every door opens for her. She stared at it for a long time, then quietly packed her bag and left for the city. Lucian was already waiting in the library of his private building. Dark shelves, glass skylights, the faint scent of leather and rain. He looked up as she entered. She didn't sit. "Do you even know who you're sitting across from?" she asked softly. He tilted his head. "Right now? I'm the girl with no background, no status, and too many headlines. The one who walks into rooms and makes powerful people uncomfortable just by existing." He stood. "You're the woman who told the truth when no one asked her to." She stepped closer. "You don't know me, Lucian. You see me, but you don't know me." "Then let me." The words hung between them. She looked at him, the quiet strength, the wounded silence, the way he watched her like she might vanish if he blinked. And then she asked, not accusing, just honest, "What do you want from me?" Lucian's expression didn't change, but his voice did, low, real. "I want to know what your laugh sounds like when you're not afraid. I want to see your handwriting on more than just meeting notes. I want to buy you coffee and not hide behind translators. I want—" He stopped himself, then added gently, "I want to stop pretending I don't care." The breath caught in Eden's throat. She felt her hand move toward her coat pocket. The white envelope. Still sealed. She pulled it out slowly. Lucian watched her, and when she finally broke the seal, unfolded the page, and read the first line, her lips parted. "In case the world turns against you, this gives you my name." She stared at the signature at the bottom. A legal declaration, Lucian Vale, offering her his full public protection, a signed partnership clause, his company, his endorsement, his name, not for romance, for dignity, for truth. And just as the tears threatened to rise, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't from him. It was from Irene. "You should have stayed invisible." Eden. Now, it's war. The building looked different when you entered through the private elevator. Polished floors, art you weren't supposed to touch, air that smelled faintly of expensive wood and colder money. Eden stepped out into the executive wing of Vale Holdings. No badge required. Her name had been added to the security list. But no one had welcomed her. No one even looked at her. Not properly, just glances, measuring, deciding. She clutched the envelope with the signed partnership clause tighter in her hand. Lucian's name was on it, his protection, his trust. But trust didn't silence whispers. It only changed their shape. She made her way toward the meeting room where the international branding team was assembling. Her first appearance as part of Lucian's advisory circle, unofficial, uninvited, and very much unwanted by most of the people sitting at the polished oval table. And at the center of it all, wearing sharp heels and a colder smile than ever before, Irene. She was already speaking when Eden entered. "And while we appreciate all perspectives," Irene said, her voice polished to perfection, "we must remember that branding is about image, clean lines, proven reputations." Then she turned right to Eden. "Which is why it's so important that everyone here understands their role." Eden didn't blink. She walked to an empty seat, didn't ask for permission, didn't look for one. She sat. Irene's smile twitched. "Of course," she added sweetly, "some roles are still being defined." Someone laughed under their breath. Eden opened her notebook, calmly, neatly. The silver pen Lucian had given her glinted softly under the lights. Across the table, one of the junior execs leaned toward Irene and whispered something behind a coffee cup. Eden didn't hear it, but she felt it. It didn't matter. She wasn't here to be liked. She was here to last. The meeting ended 2 hours later, with little resolved and even less warmth. Eden remained seated. taking notes long after the others filed out in small clouds of perfume and power. Except one, Irene. She circled back, her heels echoing through the now empty room. "You have a pretty signature," Irene said, nodding toward the contract folder still on the table. "Did he give that to you before or after the cafe photo?" Eden met her eyes. "Does it matter?" "Oh, it matters to some of us. We've worked for years to be seen, and you? You just walk in with soft skirts and sad eyes, and suddenly—" She shrugged. "Now you're in the boardroom." "I didn't ask for this," Eden said quietly. "But you didn't say no either." There it was, the real accusation. Not that she'd done anything wrong, but that she had the audacity to stay after being chosen. "I do my job well," Eden said. "That's why I'm here." "No," Irene replied, stepping closer. "You're here because he noticed you, because he likes how you talk, how you fold your hands, how you make him feel seen." She leaned in. "But don't confuse affection for belonging. You're not one of us, Eden. And you never will be." Eden didn't flinch. Instead, she closed her notebook, stood, and said, "Thank you." Irene blinked. "For what?" "For reminding me that I'm not playing your game. I'm not here to be you. I'm here to be better." She walked out without looking back. Her heart was pounding, but she didn't let it show. That afternoon, Lucian found her on the rooftop terrace, a quiet garden space few ever used. She sat at one of the iron benches, her coat draped over her knees. The city sprawled beneath her like a giant exhale. He brought 2 coffees, set one beside her. "I heard it didn't go smoothly," he said, sitting. "No," she replied, staring at the skyline, "but I didn't expect it to." He glanced at her. "You stood your ground. She doesn't think I belong. She's not wrong." Eden looked at him, stunned. Lucian softened. "You don't belong in their world, the one full of mirrors and masks and games." She looked down. "And what world do I belong to?" He reached into his coat and pulled something out. A small folded cloth napkin. She unwrapped it. Inside, a warm meat pie, still slightly steaming, flaky crust, homemade. Her brows lifted. "I stopped by the market on the corner," he said. "The woman there said these were made fresh by her son. I thought you might need something real today." Eden smiled. It was small, crooked, but real. "A meat pie is how you restore my dignity?" "No," Lucian said, sipping his coffee. "But it's a start." They sat in silence, half laughing under their breath. The pie split between them. And for a moment, just a moment, the world made sense. But then Lucian's phone vibrated. He checked the screen. Froze. "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, finally, "The leak wasn't from the firm. It was from someone close. Someone with access to my private schedule, notes, even emails." Eden's blood ran cold. "You mean—" He nodded once. "Someone who wanted you gone, but not just out of the firm." "Then what?" "Discredited, damaged, unwelcome in any future room." She stared at him. "You think it's Irene?" "I think Irene's playing a game she doesn't mind losing, as long as she takes someone with her." Eden looked out at the city. Her fingers touched the compass in her pocket as just a brush, just to feel something that wasn't made of lies. Then she said quietly, "Let them try." Lucian looked at her, proud and troubled at once, but before he could speak, his phone lit up again, and this time the message was short, from an unknown number. "We know about the contract. If she doesn't walk away, the next headline will be worse." The message echoed in Eden's mind like a warning whispered in the dark. If she doesn't walk away, the next headline will be worse. Lucian stared at the phone, thumb frozen over the screen. His expression didn't change. But Eden saw something flicker behind his eyes. Something darker than usual. Not fear exactly, not anger. Guilt. "Who has this kind of access?" Eden asked quietly. "To your schedule, your emails?" Lucian didn't answer right away. He was already moving, checking his call logs, stepping back into control mode. But she could see it, the tension building in his shoulders. the pressure of holding an empire on one side and a single woman's safety on the other. She stood from the bench, hugging her coat closer. "They won't stop, will they?" "No," he said, voice flat. "They won't, because you're not afraid of them. And that makes you dangerous." A pause, then he added, without looking at her, "Everything I touch, they try to break." Eden stared at him. "You think this is your fault? I gave you my name, my protection, and now you're a target." "You gave me a contract," she said, "not a scandal." Lucian met her gaze. "Lucian, no one cares about the truth when a lie is more interesting." The words landed between them like a stone dropped into still water. That night, Eden didn't go home. She went to Leah's. They stayed up late in her tiny flat above a flower shop, surrounded by the smell of eucalyptus and candle wax. Leah brought out a bottle of cheap red wine and a warm loaf of focaccia from the bakery downstairs. They ate it with olive oil and salt, tearing pieces by hand, dipping quietly. "I've never seen you like this," Leah said, watching her carefully. "It's like you're standing at the edge of something, and you can't decide whether to jump or run." Eden didn't answer, because she didn't know either. The next morning, she woke to another headline. This one was personal. Eden Clark's father, the hidden debt scandal she tried to leave behind. Her breath caught. She hadn't seen his name in years. Hadn't spoken it aloud since she was 17. But there it was. Printed in black and white, dredged up like a ghost. Her father had been charged with financial fraud nearly a decade ago. Her mother had taken Eden and left with nothing but a suitcase and a box of photographs. They never looked back. And now? Now it was being used as proof that she didn't belong near someone like Lucian Vale. Daughter of a conman, possibly in another scheme. Is she a risk to investors? Is Vale compromised? Eden's phone vibrated again. Lucian. She let it ring. A second time. A third. Then a text. "You didn't deserve that. Meet me. I'll explain everything." But Eden couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because she knew what this meant now. This wasn't about just the company. This was about erasing her. Entirely. Not just her job, her name, her family, her past. Everything. She met Lucian at a small cafe in Shoreditch, not the elegant kind. The kind with chipped plates and fogged-up windows where students studied too long and the coffee tasted slightly burnt. He'd already ordered for her. A slice of apple crumble. No whipped cream, just the way she liked it. "I know about the article," he said as she sat. She nodded. "I didn't want this for you. I didn't ask for this either." He looked down at his hands, took a breath. "My mother was a housekeeper." Eden blinked. "She worked for a diplomat's family in Spain, cleaned floors, made meals. I watched her be invisible for years. I told myself I'd never live like that." He met her eyes. "So I built a name no one could touch. I bought silence. I bought power. But I forgot how much it costs other people to stand near it." Eden's throat tightened. "I knew they'd come after me," she said, "but I didn't think they'd dig up him." "I'm going to find out who leaked it," Lucian said. "I swear to you, I'll have their name by tomorrow." "And then what?" "I'll bury them," she flinched. "That's not who I am, Lucian." He softened. "I know, but it's who I am when someone tries to hurt the people I care about." Eden stared at him, then whispered, "You care about me?" The question hung in the air, heavy and electric. Lucian didn't look away. "I do, and that terrifies me." A silence bloomed between them. Not fragile, not broken, just true. Eden looked down at the crumble, took a bite. Warm cinnamon, crumbly crust, a hint of lemon, a pause. Then, softly, "I used to share this with my mom on her lunch breaks. It was our we survived another week food." Lucian's gaze softened. "I'll make sure you survive every week after this." She looked up at him. "Don't promise things you can't keep." "I don't," he said. And just as he reached for her hand, not boldly, just barely brushing her fingertips, his phone buzzed. He checked it, froze, turned the screen to her, an email from a private server. No subject, no sender, only an attachment, a photo. Eden, in Lucian's private elevator, with the contract visible in her hand, the timestamp, 3 days before he made it public, and underneath it, a single sentence. This isn't over. You've made your choice. Now let her pay for it. By Monday morning, someone had forwarded the photo, not to the press, not yet, but to the board of Vail Holdings, to the partners, the assistants, the interns, the lawyers. By noon it had been seen by nearly everyone who mattered, and plenty who didn't. It was Eden in the private elevator, holding the contract. The angle made it look staged, planned, like she had posed with power in her hands. The rumors turned venomous. She's playing the long game. She had this planned from the beginning. She's going to marry him and walk away with the company. She doesn't belong here. Eden didn't leave her flat all day. Lucian called, texted, called again. Nothing. By nightfall, she turned off her phone. Silence was her only defense now, but the damage kept growing. Her inbox was filled with polite cancellations, invitations rescinded. One firm even retracted a freelance job they'd begged her for a week ago. Too much noise, they said. We can't afford the distraction. She sat on the floor beside her bed. Knees pulled to her chest, notebook open but untouched. The silver compass lay beside it, unmoving. Even North felt out of reach now. But then, a knock. Not a text, not a call. An actual knock. She didn't move at first, just sat still, hoping the world would go away. Then a voice. I know you're in there. Lucian. Soft, steady, not demanding, but certain. She stood, opened the door. He looked wrecked, his collar slightly undone, no coat, wind in his hair, and something in his eyes that broke her. Not pain, not guilt, but resolve. I know who did it, he said. I have proof. She stepped aside, let him in. Didn't ask how. He pulled a folder from his coat and handed it to her. Inside were screenshots, access logs, forwarded emails. Irene. Eden closed the folder slowly. She wanted your place, Lucian said, and when I didn't give it to her, she decided to ruin it. Eden sat on the edge of the couch. You're sure it's her? Yes, and I'm going to fire her. Publicly. Eden shook her head. No? Lucian blinked. No? She wants a war. She wants to be seen. She wants the headline. He frowned. Then what do you suggest? Eden looked up, eyes calm, voice clear. Let me speak. The next morning, Eden walked into the press briefing alone. No Lucian, no assistant, no spin doctor, just her. The media had been told there would be a clarifying statement about recent rumors. Most assumed Lucian would handle it himself, maybe behind glass, maybe with a lawyer. But instead they got her, the girl they had tried to name without knowing. The cameras flashed, murmurs rippled. Eden took the podium in a soft beige blouse and her pale blue skirt. No makeup artist, no designer label, just herself. She unfolded a single page from her notebook and began. My name is Eden Clark. I'm not a socialite. I don't have legacy wealth. I didn't graduate from a top 10 university. I don't speak 5 languages. A pause. But I know what it means to listen, to work, to stay up at night perfecting a job no one will ever credit you for. I've made coffee, taken notes, translated words people didn't mean. She looked directly at the cameras. And now people are asking why someone like me would be standing next to someone like Lucian Vail. She let the silence stretch. Then smiled, soft and steady, because I earned it, because I showed up when others showed off, because I told the truth in rooms where lies were currency, and because he sees people, not pedigrees. The room went still. No one moved. Eden folded her note, stepped back. Done. No mic drop, no tears. Just dignity, real, quiet, powerful. Lucian was waiting for her in the hallway. He didn't speak, just looked at her. Then, very simply, held out a cup of tea. Chamomile. She took it. Their fingers brushed. A beat. Then he said, "You know that compass you carry?" She smiled. "What about it?" "I think you're the one it points to." Her eyes softened. "You said everything you needed to in one line. I'm learning." Then he added, voice lower, "And I meant what I said. You don't belong in their world, Eden. You belong in your own. And if I'm lucky, maybe I'll get to be part of it." Something between them shifted. Not loud, not grand, but final. Like a door had quietly opened, she stepped closer, and for the first time, she kissed him. Slow, soft. The kind of kiss that didn't ask for anything but presence, and Lucian, the man with silence for armor, let it break. But as the cameras caught the moment through the glass behind them, another phone buzzed, far away, in another office. Irene picked it up, smiled, and whispered, "Let's see what the board thinks of that." By the next morning, the kiss was everywhere. Front pages, hashtags, headlines that swung between scandal and fairy tale. The billionaire and the translator. What's really happening behind closed doors? Lucian Vale finally speaks with his lips. Some tabloids called it romantic, others reckless. But what shook the boardroom wasn't the kiss. It was the speech. Clipped, shared, quoted. One director called it the most dignified middle finger I've ever seen. Another simply said, "She made us all look like amateurs." Still, there were questions about Lucian's judgment, about boundaries, about favoritism. But he didn't flinch. He arrived at the emergency shareholder meeting wearing his usual Navy suit and nothing to hide. Eden wasn't there. He told her to stay home, not because she couldn't face them, but because he wanted the chance to face them for her. "I did not promote Eden Clark based on emotion," Lucian said, his voice calm and clear. "I chose her because she sees what others ignore. She hears what people truly mean. And in a world that's forgotten how to be human, she reminded me how." A pause, then the kicker. "She didn't break the rules. She exposed them." Silence. A few stifled nods. One slow clap that died quickly. But the tide had turned. Even the coldest board members knew they couldn't argue with a man who had just made transparency look romantic. Meanwhile, Eden sat at a small cafe in South Bank, notebook open, pen in hand. This time, she wasn't writing translations. She was writing her story, not the headlines, not the whispers, her truth. Next to her cup of lentil soup, warm, thick, comforting, sat a folded sheet of paper, a consulting offer from 3 other firms, each impressed by her speech and hungry for someone who could translate complexity into clarity. It was the first time in her life she felt wanted on her terms. Her phone buzzed. "Leah, are you watching the stock prices? He just made a speech. You might be worth more than gold now." Eden laughed softly, not because of the value, but because someone had finally noticed her, chosen her, and stood beside her, publicly. Lucian met her that evening at the riverfront. Not a penthouse, not a hotel, just a quiet stone bench near the water where seagulls cried and couples passed with scarves and soft laughter. She was already there when he arrived, wrapped in her old cardigan, compass in her hand. He sat beside her, said nothing for a while, just watched the sun dip low. Then, "You were brilliant. I was scared." "I know." "I was too." Eden looked over at him. His eyes were softer than she'd ever seen them, not cold steel, but forged silver. He reached for the compass in her hand, turned it over. "Still points north. Even after all this?" "Especially after all this." She smiled. "I always thought power meant owning buildings," she said. "Controlling people." Lucian looked at her. "It doesn't?" "No," she whispered. "I think power is just choosing not to disappear, even when everyone tells you to." He watched her for a long moment, then asked, "Will you disappear now?" She shook her head. "Not anymore." The next day, Irene was called into a closed-door meeting with legal counsel and security. She didn't return to her desk. Her access card was revoked before lunch. She left without a scene, without a press statement, just her heels clicking down the polished hallway, each step quieter than the last. Some said she cried, others said she smiled. But Eden didn't say anything at all. She didn't need to. Dignity speaks loudest in silence. Later that week, Eden walked back into Vail Holdings, not through the side entrance but the front, not as an assistant, not as a whisper, as a consultant, with her name on the project board, her own key card, and a freshly printed title. She stopped by her old desk. It was already filled by someone new, young, nervous, staring at the monitor like it might bite. Eden smiled. "First week," the girl nodded. "Don't forget to take your breaks," Eden said. "They'll act like they don't matter, but they do." The girl smiled, grateful, and Eden walked away, not with guilt, not with regret, but with grace. She found Lucian in his office that afternoon. He looked up when she entered, paused, then smiled. Fully, finally. "Did you get the title you wanted?" "I got the one I earned." He stood, crossed the room. "Do you still want this?" he asked. Her brows lifted. "The contract." He shook his head. "This, us." Eden's throat tightened. She nodded once, then whispered, "I'm not the one who's afraid anymore." Lucian touched her face. Not possessive, not rushed, just present. And when he kissed her this time, it wasn't to silence a rumor. It was to answer a promise. But as they stood in the window light, holding each other like they had finally come home, Lucian's phone buzzed, a new number, one line. "You may have silenced Irene, but I know the rest, and I won't stay quiet forever." Eden glanced at the screen. Someone else? Lucian stared at the message, then at her. His voice was steady. "Someone who thinks we haven't earned our ending yet." Lucian didn't reply to the message. Not right away. He stared at it, eyes unreadable, then locked his phone and slipped it into his coat pocket. He wasn't shaken, not exactly, but Eden could see the shift. She placed her hand over his. "Who is it?" Lucian met her gaze. "Someone from before, someone who knew parts of my family." Eden tilted her head. "And what are they threatening to do?" He hesitated, then said, "Expose the one thing I never talk about." She waited. Let him decide if the silence would break, and slowly he began. "When I was 19, I signed away my inheritance." Eden blinked. "What?" "I didn't want it. My father's fortune came with things. Obligations, control, so I walked away, started over, built everything from nothing but my mother's name." He looked at her, eyes soft now. Vail wasn't a gift. It was a choice. Eden felt her breath catch. He wasn't just powerful. He had sacrificed to be, and someone, likely a relative or a silent rival, was now threatening to reveal that he had once rejected the very power people worshipped him for. "They want to make you look illegitimate," she said quietly. Lucian nodded. "As if I haven't earned everything I built." She took his hand. "You don't have to hide that. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you like me." He gave a small laugh. "You've always been stronger." They didn't make a press statement, didn't offer the story to the headlines. Instead, Lucian published a quiet personal essay on the company's site, under his real name, Lucian Mateo Valesa, not the shortened version he had used for years. In it he wrote, "I walked away from legacy to build something I could live with, not to hide, but to prove that value comes from integrity, not inheritance. If my name means anything now, it's because I earned it. And if you still want to believe gossip over truth, that's your burden, not mine." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, but it spread like wildfire, because it was honest. And when people saw Eden's name in the byline, helping him shape the message, the tone changed again. They're building something together. It's not a fairy tale. It's a partnership. 2 weeks later, Eden returned to Croydon. This time, she didn't knock quietly. She walked in, set her bag down, and hugged her mother before a single word could be said. They sat at the kitchen table, a pot of tea between them. Cinnamon toast again. Her mother didn't ask about Lucian, not directly, just said, "You look different." "I feel different." Less afraid? More grounded. Her mother looked at the compass on the table, then reached for it, just to touch, not to take. "You know, when your grandmother gave you this, I don't think she meant it would always point north." Eden frowned. "What do you mean?" "I think she meant you would decide where it points." Eden stared at the little needle, spinning gently, settling, and understood. Maybe north wasn't a direction. Maybe it was a person, a purpose, a life that felt real. That evening, Lucian met her by the Thames. No suits, no guards. Just a black sweater, soft coat, and the look of a man finally standing in his own skin. She handed him a pastry wrapped in brown paper. "Pistachio croissant," she said. "You never let yourself try one." "I thought they were too sweet." "They are," she smiled. "But sometimes sweet is good." They sat on a bench, sharing bites, letting the city hum around them. No cameras, no headlines, just life, breathing, healing, choosing. Lucian reached into his coat and pulled out a small, simple box. Eden blinked. "What is that?" He opened it. Inside, a silver compass, just like hers. But this one had an engraving. "Wherever you are is north." Her breath caught. "I was going to wait," he said, voice quiet but sure. "Wait for the noise to pass, for the world to calm down. But then I realized I don't want perfect." He looked into her eyes. "I want real. I want you." He held the compass out to her, steady. "Eden Clark, will you marry me?" She didn't cry, she didn't gasp. She just smiled, that soft, certain smile that had once disarmed him in a crowded boardroom, and whispered, "Yes." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat like that for a long time, not because they had no more to say, but because now they finally didn't need to prove anything to anyone. 6 months later, the office buzzed with a new kind of energy. Lucian's firm had just launched a mentorship program, the Clark Initiative, designed to support underrepresented talent in global industries. Eden Vale oversaw it. No one called her the assistant anymore. She wore her soft cardigans, signed her emails Eden Clark Vale, and spoke with the quiet certainty of someone who had built her place, not been given one. Her wedding band, silver and simple, gleamed as she flipped through project files. She still wore her grandmother's compass around her neck. And sometimes, Lucian's staff said they could hear it faintly clicking when she walked through the halls. Lucian still listened more than he spoke. But now, when he looked at her from across the boardroom, the whole room knew. This wasn't a man with a scandal. This was a man who had found his compass and married her. At home, their kitchen was still small. They still argued about how to fold the dish towels. But every Friday night, they shared chamomile tea and lentil soup on the couch, their version of candlelight and violins. Because real love, they had learned, isn't always grand. Sometimes it's quiet. But it always knows where home is. The end. Some names are given at birth. Others are earned through fire, courage, and the choice to love with your whole heart. Would you have trusted again after everything Eden went through? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if this story stayed with you, even just a little, don't forget to like, subscribe, and rate this love story from 0 to 10 below. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious. See you in the next story.